First, I have to define the law of accelerating returns, which is that the price performance and capacity, not of everything, but of information technology, progresses exponentially. And that's radically different than our intuition. Our intuition is that things continue linearly, that technology progresses 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's true of non-information technologies. So at step 30, I'm at 30. Exponential progressions, which is true of information technology, goes 2, 4, 8, 16, and at step 30, you're at 1 billion. And this little computer is several billion times more powerful per dollar than the computer I used when I was a student. It's 100,000 times smaller. We'll do that again in 25 years. And this is a very ubiquitous, pervasive progression. It goes through thick and thin, through war and peace, through boom times and recessions. People say, well, it must have slowed down during the recent recession, but that's not the case. By 2029, computers will be at human levels of intelligence, both in terms of the hardware and the software. They'll actually be more than human in terms of the hardware. And we'll ultimately merge with those technologies. This will be the size of a blood cell in the 2030s. We'll have millions of little nanobots with computers inside our bloodstream, keeping us healthy, augmenting our immune system, going inside our brain, putting our brain on the cloud, expanding our thinking. And by 2045, we'll be 1 billion times smarter because of our integration with the intelligent technology we're creating. That's such a profound transformation that we borrow this metaphor from physics and call it the singularity, because it's hard to see beyond that event horizon.
Sci-fi representations about the rise of machine intelligence often present a very scary us versus them scenario. But Kurzweil tends to have a more benign view of how the human-AI relationship will likely evolve.
Well, what's the human-AI relationship now? I mean, we do have artificial intelligence. I mean, I can talk to this, I can access all of human knowledge with questions posed in natural language. So it's not human level, but in some ways it's smarter because it can access all of knowledge. Is this AI only in a few dark intelligence agencies and controlled by a few evil corporations? No, there are 7 billion cell phones. There's over 1 billion smartphones. A kid in Africa with a smartphone has access to more information, intelligent information, than the President of the United States did 15 years ago. It's very widely distributed. And even though this is not inside my body and brain today, that's an arbitrary distinction. This is an expansion of my intelligence. I'm smarter because of all these resources we have. I felt that part of my brain went on strike during that one-day SOPA strike. And I think that's going to be the wave of the future. It's going to be very widely integrated. We're going to merge. We are merging with this intelligent technology that we're creating. We'll get to a point within 40 years or so where we can really back up who we are. In fact, we will increasingly become non-biological. Our thinking will be a hybrid of our biological brains with a non-biological extension in the cloud. And we always back up, non-biological intelligence, our computers. And so we will become increasingly backed up, get to 2050, 2060. We're certainly going to be fully backed up, which we're not now. People will find it shocking 100 years from now that we actually went through the day without backing up our mind file. You wouldn't think about going through the day without backing up your phone. Right. Yet there's information in our brains. That's not a metaphor either. And we don't back that up, but we will.
Kurzweil is famous for the accuracy of his technology predictions, such as the rise of the Internet and the fall of the Soviet Union due to improved communications. I ask him what it is that allows him to make such accurate predictions.
The accuracy of my predictions stems from the uncanny predictability of the price performance of information technology and its capacity. And that's what I call the law of accelerating returns. And I have a whole mathematical treatment about why that's the case, but we're always using the latest technology to create the next. So we're creating the computers of 2015, now with the computers of 2013. But it's remarkable how predictable that trajectory is. If you look at the price performance of computing, it's a very smooth curve on a logarithmic graph going back to the 1890 American census. Same thing with communication technology, same thing with genetic sequencing. Any information technology follows this very predictable trajectory. And I had this curve of computing going through 1980 in 1981, projected out to 2050. We're now at 2013, and it's exactly where it should be. It's held up very precisely for 30 years, so it's not something I just noticed last week. These are very predictable trajectories. I have a whole theoretical examination of why that's the case, but the strongest evidence is just the empirical evidence.
Kurzweil hates death and never intends to die.
Death is a profound tragedy. It's a profound loss of relationships and knowledge and skill and meaning. Some people articulate, well, we need to accept death. That's the goal of life, is to get comfortable with death and accept it. I don't accept it.
Kurzweil takes about 150 supplements a day, plus gets regular intravenous nutritional infusions. Through this program of aggressive supplementation, rigorous diet, and exercise, Kurzweil expects to live long enough to live forever.
Well, people sometimes say, well, Ray, taking these supplements and other things you do with your lifestyle, that's going to enable you to live hundreds of years? And the answer is no. That whole program that I follow now is Bridge 1, and the goal of Bridge 1 is only to get to Bridge 2. And Bridge 2 is the sort of maturation, full flowering of the biotechnology revolution, where we can literally reprogram this outdated software that runs in our bodies. And it's not a metaphor. I mean, our genes are literally little software programs, and they evolved thousands of years ago when it was not in the interest of the human race as a species for people to live very long, because there was limited food and resources. And once you're done raising your kids and you're maybe 30, biological evolution didn't care about you anymore. We will see dramatic changes in health and medicine 10 years from now. We'll see radical changes 20 years from now. We need to get to that point. So I'm 65. On many biological aging tests, I come out a lot younger. I expect to be in my 40s 15 years from now when we get to Bridge 2.
In the documentary about Kurzweil, his last words in the film are,
So does God exist? Well, I would say not yet.
I asked him what he meant.
The different religions actually have a surprising agreement on what God is. God is an unlimited amount of what? Memory, intelligence, creativity, love, basically the highest things that our neocortex does. And what happens in evolution? Entities like mammals and humans become more intelligent, more creative, more loving, and moving exponentially to become more godlike. Never quite reaching God, but moving in that direction. So evolution is a spiritual process, bringing us closer to God. And technological evolution is now running 1,000,000 times faster than biological evolution. And ultimately, we will vastly, ultimately trillions-fold, expand our creativity and our sense of humor and our ability to love, and we'll become more godlike. And that's as close as we can get to this ideal. We never really will become infinite, but it'll seem infinite from today's perspective. Starting in the 2030s, we will actually extend our neocortex in the cloud. Our neocortex is where we do our thinking. It's a hierarchical structure, and at the very top of the hierarchy, we've got things like love and poetry and irony and humor. So we once expanded our neocortex before when we became humanoids, and we developed these large foreheads. Other primates have a slanted brow. The forehead, which is the frontal cortex and is responsible for higher level thinking like art and poetry, is actually not qualitatively different. It's just an additional quantity of neocortex. But now we had enough neocortex to take care of our basic needs, and we could actually devote some to thinking these higher level thoughts. That additional quantity of neocortex was the enabling factor for us to invent language and art and science. And we're going to expand it again, basically by expanding into the cloud, by sending nanobots into the brain, which will basically just be communicators to the cloud, and then we can have a sort of a neocortex extension in the cloud. The cloud is pure information technology. It's doubling in power every year. So more and more of our thinking will be in the cloud. And if you remember what happened the last time we expanded a neocortex, we took this qualitative leap. We're going to take another qualitative leap as we expand our thinking into the cloud. And over time, more and more of our thinking will be in the cloud. You certainly go out 100 years, let alone 200, it'll be almost all in the cloud. We'll still have biological bodies because these old technologies don't go away instantly, but we'll be able to create bodies with nanobot swarms when we need them. We won't be limited to just this biological body, and we won't be limited to just our biological thinking. Everybody says, oh, well, an exponential has to, stop somewhere. And there actually are limits based on what we understand about the physics of computing, but they're not very limiting. We can go into late in this century based on self-organizing three-dimensional molecular circuits, which are already starting to work, at which point computers will be trillions of times more powerful than the human brain. So the limits are not very limiting. And the reason for that is that the amount of matter and energy required to compute a bit or remember a bit or transmit a bit of information is vanishingly small. And we can pack we can pack more intelligence than the entire biological human race has now into 2 pounds of matter based on these limits. That doesn't mean there are no downsides. I mean, take biotechnology. I mean, we are reprogramming our biology away from cancer, away from heart disease. Those are good things. But the same technology could empower a bioterrorist today to reprogram a benign virus like a cold virus to be a deadly weapon. So there is a promise and peril, and they're deeply intertwined. I've actually written more about the downsides of these technology than most anyone else. I believe there are strategies we can deploy to keep them safe, but we have to give a high priority to that, to making those investments. My books are really a wake-up call for my contemporaries, my baby boomer peers, my kids who are in my 20s and 30s who just avoid extreme sports, and they've got a very good chance of getting there. We can always get hit by the proverbial bus tomorrow, but we're working on that too with the self-driving cars that we're working on at Google, right. Which are only a few years out from actual commercial adoption. So it's never a guarantee, but Bridge 2 is a very different methodology. And that's just a bridge to Bridge 3, which is the nanotechnology revolution, the quintessential application of which are nanobots in the bloodstream, which will augment our immune system. Our immune system is great. We wouldn't last long without it, but it has limitations. It doesn't recognize cancer. It thinks, hey, that's me, and it doesn't go after it. People say, gee, you're going to live another 100 years. You have to take in consideration that it's not like nothing is going to happen in those 100 years. So the more time goes by, the more life extension technologies we have. And the key tipping point is when the rate of technological progress, which is getting faster and faster, is so fast that it outpaces the time going by. So we add more than a year to your remaining life expectancy every year. And that tipping point is 10 to 15 years away, in my opinion. We're really very close to it because of the progress we're making with biotechnology. Well, I'm responsible for a project to bring Google into the era of actually understanding the language in every document. Google does a lot of clever things with documents, but it doesn't completely understand what the document means. So if you write a blog post, you've got something to say. Now, Google organizes the world's information, but the key information is actually the ideas that you put in there, not just the words and relationships of the words. And when currently, no computer really understands the meaning of documents. If you read something, you're taking that sort of hierarchical structure of the meaning of the language and creating a hierarchical structure in your neocortex. In my latest book, How to Create a Mind, I talk about what that hierarchical structure is. And we're actually creating a synthetic neocortex that can understand language just the way a human does, and can read something for meaning and then end up with a hierarchical structure in its synthetic brain that reflects the meaning. And that will greatly enrich the world of search. You'll be able to ask very complicated questions. It will understand what your concerns are. It might just suddenly pop up and say, well, you were concerned about whether your glutathione supplement gets past the blood-brain barrier. Well, new research just came out 13 seconds ago that addresses that. Let me summarize it for you. And then you could ask questions back, and it will be just like a human assistant that you can ask questions and get answers. That's the future of search, and that's what I'm creating with my team at Google.